Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing a little after midnight East Coast time on Monday morning. Joining us from Indianapolis, the Gainsbridge Fieldhouse, is Tim Bontemps.
Hello, everybody.
What a conference finals game you had there. Now we got an Eastern Conference Finals, Mr. Bontemps.
We do. It's true.
Over here in the Western Conference, all the way up in Minneapolis, joining me on a different floor. I don't know what floor he's on. I don't want to know. Is Ben MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. Maybe at some point we'll get a competitive game in this series.
That would be nice. 42 points in game 3. Not what I was expecting. All right, but we're going to start in the East with the Knicks. I feel like if I had to put it in meme form, I would use the Undertaker meme with him getting up off the mat.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks down 20 in the first half, down 10 going to the fourth quarter. Although going into the fourth quarter, Bontemps, they looked like they were getting a little bit of traction. But to me, and we haven't talked at all about this game, so I don't know what you're going to say, and you were there. To me, this game was about Tom Thibodeau searching like crazy for something that would work, and him being compelled due to foul trouble. I doubt it was in his strategy, but compelled due to foul trouble to play Jalen Brunson and Karl Towns together less. And as a result, the Knicks played better defense. And as a result, they came back and won. I don't know how you saw it, Bontemps, but that's what I saw.
I mean that is partially true. Jalen Brunson had 4 fouls in the first half. Karl Towns had 3 in the first half.
Gave the ref the thumbs up. Jalen gave him the thumbs up.
Yeah, Jalen was very unhappy with the refs. He spent most of the fourth quarter watching from the bench while Karl cooked. But to me, this night was about one thing. It was about Karl Towns having the moment of his career. This is a guy who has made All-NBA teams. This is a guy who's had a lot of success. It's also a guy who's been poked at a lot for his performances in big spots. And the first 3 quarters of this game, Karl Towns and the Knicks were horrendous. Karl had 4 points. They were floating around. They fell behind by 20 in the second quarter. They looked like they were going to get run off the court. They might have been run off the court if Aaron Nesmith doesn't sprain his ankle halfway through the third quarter and sort of send the game into kind of a weird stretch in the second half of the third. But Karl Towns comes out to start the fourth quarter. Knicks are down 10. Season's on the line. Obviously already lost the first 2 games at home. He scores 14 points in the first 4 minutes of the quarter. Made shots from all over the place. He's dunking on people for and ones. He's hitting threes from 30 feet away. I mean, obviously, he is one of the most talented scorers at 7 feet we've ever seen. And he put all that stuff on display in the fourth quarter of this game. And when the Knicks traded for him back in September, you make that trade because you believe Karl Towns can deliver in moments like this. And he did. And for all the other chaos that went on in this game, for all the other issues the Knicks have had in this series, they still have a chance to win it. They still have a chance to get to the finals because Karl Towns, in the biggest moment of his career to date, delivered in a way that, frankly, I did not think he was going to be capable of doing.
How come you don't say his full name? I'm very confused.
Because I'm tired and I don't feel like saying all.
A lot of people, names. I always call him Karl Towns.
The man's name is Karl Anthony Towns. Give him the full respect.
Okay.
I gave him a lot of respect today because that was a big time. That was just a big time performance.
Hey, self-proclaimed greatest shooting big man of all time, and came through in the fourth quarter with that kind of performance. But it wasn't just shooting. It was an all-around scoring exhibition. Like you said, 20 points in the fourth quarter when the Knicks desperately needed it. I mean, if they don't come back and win that game, we're wasting time in game 4. Brunson on the bench most of the fourth quarter. Brunson didn't have a great game by his standards, made some plays down the stretch, but they desperately needed Cat to have an all-NBA kind of performance, and it took a while, but he delivered with not just the game, but with their season on the line.
Well, and this is the one other thing to Brian's point. The story of the past 2 days was Carl having a terrible defensive performance in game 2, and that playing a big part in the Knicks going to Mitchell Robinson in the starting lineup. Mitchell Robinson played 30 seconds in the fourth quarter of this game. Karl Towns was out there as the lone big the entire quarter. They held the Pacers, one of the best offenses in the league, to 20 points. He held up defensively at the same time, right? This was at both ends, exactly what the Knicks needed from him in a gigantic spot. And the craziest part was he was horrible the rest of the game. Like, he and the Knicks were just completely dead in the water. And yes, they hit a couple shots late in the third to get it to 10. I didn't think they had a chance of coming back in the game at that point. It didn't really feel like they were getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden, Carl comes out, becomes a human flamethrower, and the game is tied 4 minutes in.
Well,
So,
and
just crazy.
And when they're making shots, the Pacers are taking the ball out of the basket. Halliburton was not able to dictate tempo whatsoever in the fourth quarter. I believe they had 0 fast break points in the fourth quarter. And, a lot like Minnesota did to Oklahoma City for all of game 3. Like, if you can prevent the Thunder from creating points off turnovers, you've got a chance to make them look like a pretty mediocre offense. Now, you're talking about preventing the best team in the league by far at creating and converting turnovers from doing that. It's easier said than done. Same thing with the Pacers as far as like pushing the pace, getting out in transition. If you can take that away from them, which is a lot easier said than done, but if you can do that, then it's a different beast if they have to grind out possessions in the half court. And that's exactly what happened in the fourth quarter.
I'm not sure he was so much of a flamethrower is that he was very aggressive going to the basket. Like, he totally felt the need to force the issue.
Well, I just meant getting hot, period. But
No,
yeah, you're right. But he was aggressive. He was aggressive in every way.
And again, before I talk about this, I really want to be clear. Obviously, Jalen Brunson is potentially the MVP of the playoffs so far. And by the way, when he came back in with the last 2 minutes, he was totally the closer and made a huge driving layup.
Mm-hmm. Hit the game-winning bucket. Guy was horrible. Again, he was horrible the entire game. He comes in after basically not playing in the fourth quarter. He immediately scores what ends up being the game-winning basket.
I think they won this game because they didn't play together.
Well,
and again, that is not a judgment on Jalen Brunson, the closer, Jalen Brunson, the player. It is not a judgment on Karl Towns. It is a judgment on, in this particular matchup, like the reason that Karl Towns was able to have that quarter was because Jalen Brunson wasn't out there.
I mean, yes and no. They got obliterated in the second quarter when only Brunson was out there.
Well, I just say this. In the game, Towns is a +6, Jalen is a -6. And that -6 was with him going down the stretch. He crushed. They were +9.
It is because that stat is primarily because Cat caught fire in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
And I think flamethrower is appropriate. 6 of 9 from the floor, 3 of 4 from 3-point range. I mean, yes, more aggressive, also 5 of 6 from the line, but 3 of 4 from 3-point range. One of them absolutely should have been an and one.
Yes.
I mean, but just a high degree of difficulty shot, but he's +14.
Okay, I know, but through 3 quarters, Brunson's -15, the worst on the team.
Yes, again, I think that
it's not a commentary on him. And by the way, Rick Carlisle said it. Rick Carlisle said it in the post game.
Yes, he did.
And it doesn't sound like anyone's listened to him. He said they played their better defensive players.
Well, he got asked about them not scoring as much in the second half, and he said they played their better defensive players.
And so what does that mean?
Well, they played the entire fourth quarter with Karl Towns at center by himself, and the Pacers scored 20 points. So
I know, but I think the key is they didn't have the 2 defensive holes out there.
I mean, they had Landry Shamet out there for a good chunk of the fourth quarter.
I know Landry Shamet was great today.
I will say 2.5 minutes. By the way, but you talk about Surgeon. Shamet played significant minutes tonight.
Well, I think I saw the stat.
Wright played significant minutes tonight.
I think I saw
and
the
those
stat.
Guys were both pretty good.
The Knicks played 15 lineups tonight, and 7 of them had never played together before.
Yes.
Now part of that was Tibbs decided to go into his bench and play Landry Shamet and Delon Wright.
Right.
And it was exacerbated by the fact that there was foul trouble. both definitely with Cat and with Brunson, but also Miles McBride got 3 fouls in a minute and a half. So it wasn't like Tibbs came into this game going, I'm going to play 7 lineups I've never played before. He started into the deep end of the pool, and next thing you know, he's thrashing around. And by the way, it was not working for a while.
It wasn't working for the entire first 3 quarters of the game.
Yeah.
And then it worked in the fourth quarter because of Karl Towns. Now, there are some things I think you can take away from it, but this game was about Karl Towns stepping up in a way.
But Karl Towns isn't getting isolations at the top of the key with Brunson in there, and they weren't going to be getting those stops in my view, with the 2 of them in there. What I'm saying is this: I think going forward, Tibbs is going to have to lean heavier into the stagger with those 2 guys. I am not arguing that you bring Cat off the bench or something like that. What I am saying is he may have to lean into the stagger.
He did. I think he did do that. Cat came out.
That's why Brunson wasn't playing, by the way, in the fourth quarter. Again, Tibbs said it. You had to peel back the layers. The way Tibbs said it was that group had a rhythm. But when the season's on the line, you're not leaving Brunson on the bench till there's 2 minutes left.
You are if he's both been horrendous and in foul trouble, which he was. And
but there was it got to okay, at 5, Brunson coming in.
That wasn't a foul decision. That was a matchup decision.
Yeah, at 4. It was at 4 minutes. Okay, is Brunson getting off the bench?
I didn't think it wasn't until coming back in the game at all.
It wasn't until
I was surprised when he came back in with 1:45 to go.
Yeah, and he didn't get off the bench to check back in, and they were showing Brunson until after 3 minutes, and then he stood there for a while. But they were showing Brunson on the bench, and he was kind of looking down toward Tibbs, you ready for the clutch player of the year to come in,
And he did, coming back. And look, all the heat that Tibbs has taken, and probably would have been absolutely flamed if they hadn't come back in this game. Tibbs did the correct moves in the fourth quarter. He played that correctly based on what the situation demanded of it. And also, and this will be a lot about when we talk about the West Finals, certain things are through lines in series, and this is a cliche, but it's damn true. A lot of times playoff games are individually their own, and they're not always not always duplicatable. Sometimes, if you're playing a 6'4" guy against a 7-footer, it's going to be tough in game 1 and game 6. But I don't know. I felt tonight I think they're going to lean into the stagger, Bontemps. I don't know. Maybe it was.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you. They were already in the game. Karl came out 5-6 minutes into the first quarter. They already were doing that. It didn't change the fact that Jalen Brunson played as bad as he's played in a game all season. He was terrible. He hit a couple shots late to make it look better, but he at one point was 4 for 17 or 4 for 15 and minus 15 in 27 minutes, and had the worst plus minus on the team. So yes, that having better defensive players out there helped, and it was part of what turned things around. If you had said before the game that the Knicks are going to play Karl Towns at center for the entire fourth quarter and hold the Pacers to 20 points, you probably would have got pretty good odds on that. So no matter who else was out there with them.
Miles Turner, 0 of 4. He played the last 11 minutes, 0 of 4. So he certainly didn't take advantage of it there.
Well, and this is the other thing. The Pacers coming into tonight's game were the only team in the playoffs that was shooting either 50% from the floor and 40% from 3. They were doing both. They had the highest field goal percentage and the highest 3-point percentage of any team in the playoffs. Been waiting for them to have a bad shooting game. They went 5 for 25. And the most important number there to me is the 25. This is a team that typically gets up a lot of threes. The Knicks did a good job of limiting them on threes. So it is going to be fascinating to see how some of these rotation things look in game 4. But the Knicks also just did not look like the team that was up. They looked like the team that was up 2-0 for most of the game rather than one that was down 2-0. And the Pacers, really until about midway through the third, completely dictated things. And the Nesmith thing, that injury really, I think, gave the Knicks a chance because it really messed them up for a while.
Well, and Brunson was asked for a word to describe the series, and he said unpredictable. These are two of the best comeback teams in playoff history. competing against each other, coming back against each other. We went over all the insane Pacers comeback stats, with all like the final minute ridiculous comeback stats. Here's one from Stats and Info, and then Jackson just threw another one in the chat. The Knicks are the first team to come back from 20-plus down 3 times in the same postseason since at least 98, basically in the play-by-play era. 20-point comeback playoff wins. There have been 6 in the 2025 playoffs and 5 in the last 4 playoffs combined. And of those 6, 3 of them are the Knicks. And I don't know how many of them are the Pacers, but they've had, forget about 20-point comeback wins, like 9 points in the final minute.
We obviously are in the comeback era of the NBA for two big reasons, I think. One, and this, throughout the regular season, how many 20-point leads got blown?
20-point leads ain't what they used to be.
2 reasons why I think that's the case. If you disagree, speak up. 1, 3-pointer.
Yep.
2, the pace of play.
100%.
So, the teams play fast. This is the last 3-4 years in the NBA have been the fastest pace of play since the 60s. And so there's way more possessions in a game. So
there's one other one too for these late game things. The new timeout rule. Teams are running out of timeouts in a way they did not in the past. And all these Pacer comebacks in particular have all had the same exact thing as part of them, which is teams are calling timeouts early to try to inbound the ball. And then for the final 30, 40 seconds, they don't have timeouts. Guys are getting tired. Guys have to force passes in to try to get out of turnover situations. And it leads to a lot more chaos. So specifically in the late game ones, I think the timeout thing is part of it too.
I agree. Definitely the late game situational. Also, as long as you're bringing up Tibbs, I want to say fourth quarter coaching, he saved 2 timeouts till the last minute. And that enabled him. It ended up not mattering because the Pacers couldn't score, but it ended up allowing him to go full offense defense. He was able to take Brunson and Towns out of the game because he knew he'd get him back in on timeouts.
Yep.
So whatever Tibbs did, because Tibbs took a lot of heat for the way he played. He coached at the end of game 2, where he kept Towns out of the game, and seeing Towns score 20 in the fourth quarter tonight, that's not going to make that decision look better. However, I understood why he was doing it. It may have been the wrong decision, but I understood.
Well, no, it wasn't the wrong decision. Let's break this down.
Right.
Tibbs took Karl Towns out at the start of the fourth quarter because he made several awful defensive plays in a row. Like, he was hedging out on TJ McConnell 30 feet from the basket. TJ McConnell shoots threes like we do. Like, he's a terrific player, but he's not a 3-point shooter.
I ain't gonna lie. I played pickup ball this morning. I went 0 from 3. It was the NBA line, but
he's better than MacMahon.
But warm ups, Bontemps, I'm more confident than ever. I can go 7 of 25 to satisfy our bet.
Okay, so I also don't think that was the number, but we're not going to do.
It was the number, dude.
Back to McConnell. That is why Tom Thibodeau sat Karl Towns in the fourth quarter of the game. That's why Tom Thibodeau changed his starting lineup.
It was for defense. The answer is it was for defense.
That's right. And that's why the thing about the fourth quarter today was Karl Towns also was part of a good defense in the fourth quarter. It wasn't just that he had 20 points. It's that the Pacers only scored 20 points themselves as a team.
I would have to look into all of these shots, but I suspect Karl had a lot to do with it. In the second half, the Pacers were 4 of 13 in the paint.
Oh, listen, the Pacers scored 7 points on 3 of 14 field goals with Cat as their primary defender, and the Pacers were 3 of 10 when he contested their shot. The Pacers averaged 19.5 points in games 1 and 2 with Cat as their primary defender. I know all this because I think Jackson's the best producer in the Hoop Collective, despite what Bontemps says.
Well, I also
despite
think
what Bontemps wants to say.
It might be easier for Cat when he's not being put into pick and rolls with Brunson, which, by the way, once they both got in the game together in the fourth quarter, Indiana immediately went to a pick and roll. They just couldn't score out of it.
Yes, of course. I mean, that is something they're going to have to deal with in the series. But all my point is they were already starting to go away from it at the start of the game. And then the combination of the foul trouble and the way the game was going sort of sent the game in a weird direction anyway. It's also worth pointing out that after the game, Josh Hart, who was taken out of the starting lineup in favor of Mitchell Robinson, said it was his idea to do that. and that he went to Tibbs and had talked to Tibbs about it previously as a possibility. And by the way, I'm pretty sure this is accurate, that Josh Hart came in the game 5-6 minutes into each half and never came out both halves and played 34 minutes. So he still played plenty of minutes off the bench.
What was the starting lineup? Do you have the lineup data on what the starting lineup was?
They were all in the plus except for Brunson.
I believe as a group they were -1. But it was not -29, which is what that group was in the first 2 games of the series, the original starting lineup.
Josh Hart still got 10 rebounds, including the rebound of the game with, I think it was the 1-possession game in the fourth quarter. And he came flying in, got the rebound, hurt his knee on the play. I hope it was just
that was an insane rebound, though.
I hope it was just a tweak because he kept.
No, he looked fine after the game. Aaron Nesmith, though, by the way, was walking around with a limp. It's not the same ankle that he hurt early in the year when he had a pretty rough left ankle injury, but that's going to be something to monitor because he obviously is the only guy who's got any prayer of slowing down Brunson.
As an amateur watch an ankle injury specialist, that's one of those that in the regular season you would say you could miss a game because
it was tough because the foot got caught in a weird deal where he kind of dragged the toe and it bent awkwardly.
Wasn't a fun one to see.
And then he stepped and it rolled. So it was in the span of less than a second, there was 2 weird, not good movements with that ankle.
That's, look, I have no idea. I'm just telling you, watching it, having seen 1,000 of these, that's the type of situation where you're able to play the rest of the game, but then it's tough the next couple of days.
I went to college. I went to college for 8 years.
They really need him.
8 years of college tells me that it looked painful.
Good job.
And they really need him because he's the only guy that can really do anything to slow Brunson down. I mean, I know he didn't hit shots today, but
I think his shot making ability has been proven in this series, though.
Yeah.
Well, yes, and last year against them too. So, look, I'm just glad this series is 2-1 after 3 games because all 3 of these games have been awesome. The spread through them is Pacers +2 through 3 games. One of them went obviously to overtime. They've all gone down to the last. There's been a chance to tie the game in the final 10 seconds, I think, of all 3 games. It's been just everything we thought it would be, just not at all the way we expected it to be. And I thought it was funny. I was in the locker room tonight and Josh Hart said, somebody asked about coming back and he said, it'd be nice if we didn't get down by that much. And that's exactly what Tyrese Halliburton said in the locker room after game 1. And I think it just, as you said earlier, MacMahon, when Jalen Brunson called the series unpredictable, I think that's really the only way to describe what has been a super fun and wacky series so far.
Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith have both been excellent at both ends of the court in this game, regardless of the ankle injury. They were combined 2 of 17. And Benedict Mathurin, who was, a fringe 6th man of the year candidate because he was one of the leading scorers in the league, coming off the bench. And, in addition to being just a maniac the way he plays, they can routinely count on him for bench scoring. I think he's averaging 4 points a game in the series. He did not make a basket in this game. And
I'm not sure he'll be playing much more in this series.
Hey, was that I have an important question. The fellow wearing the bright red and yellow race car driver uniform who was holding the helmet and wearing the shades, he was right behind Carlisle for a lot of the game. Was that just a costume or was he a real?
It came right from the Indy 500 pits.
That was the guy who won the 500. I think Alex Palou is his name. He's from Spain. Yeah. He was at the game.
Was he wearing his uniform?
No, that was not him.
Okay,
but he was at the game and celebrated.
That was just some Yahoo.
That was some Yahoo.
Okay.
The 500 is a religious experience here in Indianapolis, and it's ironically this is the 4th time that the Pacers have had this situation where they've had a game, conference finals game, the day of the 500, and they've lost all 4.
Racers and Pacers.
Racer, Pacer. Yeah, it hasn't gone good. So I've been to 2 of those. And I think after COVID, they do put it on the air locally, but
It was on the air here, the 500.
when I first experienced it during the Heat Pacer Wars, when I was there for a couple of them, I was like, well, I guess I should turn. I know I don't watch racing. I was like, I guess I should turn it on to see what it's like, and it was not on. For decades, it was not on. It's on tape. It was on tape delay, but people listened to it on the radio. The radio was a big thing, and it was
people
not on.
Go to the race and then they'd come home and watch it.
That's correct.
I mean, what's unusual about that? Half the NBA you can't get in the local market.
You're right. Yeah, because my son, my 7-year-old, came to the game, the game 3. He doesn't know these two teams very well.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. An Omaha guy.
Because he can't watch them regularly.
Mm.
You don't get to watch them regularly. Now,
his son likes winners. I'm pretty sure he likes the Thunder.
Yes, he likes
the Wolves after last night, buddy.
He has Wolves gear. I mean, he was actually at 2 Wolves games this year, so he knows who Ant is, etc. But anyway, and then what I know, and I think this is still the case, and if it's not the case, I apologize. This is just ignorance. There's historically the winner has to stay, because on Monday there's this banquet.
Oh.
That goes on for hours and hours and hours.
God, it sounds excruciating.
And they televise that too.
Oh my God. People watch people eat?
Well, it's just their speeches.
Is it like the hot dog contest? Like the old
No, I don't actually see them eat.
or whatever
There's lots of speeches and ceremonies. And again,
oh my God,
maybe this ended and I'm wrong.
Speeches and eating?
No eating. But
there's a banquet without food? This gets worse every time you say something.
You don't see it. It's off the camera. But
too much for you to process.
I remember being, it was during the Eastern Conference Finals, and we were in this restaurant. We wanted to watch the Western Conference Finals game, and they were like, not till after the banquet, sir.
I thought it was rough enough to watch people drive in circles. Then you got to watch.
Imagine being at a sports bar during the Western Conference Finals and being told that you can't put the game on so they could watch the banquet on mute.
Did you give them did you say, do you know who I am?
That doesn't get me anywhere in Indianapolis.
Well, I don't know. It got somewhere at Old Craig's of Hollywood, baby. Got us a table, lickety split.
Anyway, that series is now alive. Bontemps, clear your schedule for the rest of the week.
Yes, happy about that. Happy there'll be at least another game in Madison Square Garden.
You are definitely needed.
All right. Shifting west to the series that MacMahon and I are on. 42 pointeroos there, MacMahon. That was 40. What was it? 143, 101, I think was the final.
That sounds right. It was a whole lot to not nearly enough.
Like you expect a team down 2 coming home to fight for its life. I mean, even if it's a 1-8 series.
Yes, and you expect a 68-win team to not get their doors blown off.
Right.
To use a technical term that Mark Dagenau dropped today in game 3 of the Western Conference Finals. I mean, look, man, it's one game. Like you don't get to carry the point total over.
Correct.
But there's never been a team beat by 40 points in the playoffs that went on to win a championship. I think there's a good chance that stat will not be true in a month. But let's not pretend like this wasn't a massively disappointing performance.
I remember talking to
top seed Thunder.
I was talking to Dave McMenamin tonight, and I was telling him a story about the 2008-9 Cavs. It's a team I covered. They won 66 games. They lost 2 of the 3 games that year to the Magic. And there was one game where they went down to Orlando and they lost by 40. And losing by 40 in 2009 was equivalent to probably losing by 53 today.
Right.
But I remember LeBron saying, I've never been down in a game by 40 points my whole life. That's no longer the case. It's happened quite a few times with the Lakers.
Sure.
But I remember thinking, as I was watching that game, going, if the Cavs can get beat by a team by 40, they may be it might be a problem there, and it ended up being a problem. The Magic beat them in 6, and very easily could have been 5 if LeBron hadn't hit a buzzer beater in that series. So
Right.
By the way, though, that stat of no teams lost by 40 won a title. There's been one that's lost by 39. It was the Warriors in 22. There's been one that's lost. Another one that's lost by 39. It was the Bucks in 21. It's been one that lost by 38. It was the Celtics last year. So again, point differential ain't what it used to be.
That's right.
Yeah.
Going both ways. Having said all that, first off, the Timberwolves were an extremely frustrated team at the end of game 2. They were frustrated about the fouls that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was getting, although they are fouls. They're not necessarily playoff fouls. Like I was talking to a scout who was like, I'm watching the Pacer Knicks series and I'm watching how they're letting them defend each other. And then I'm turning on the Western Conference and I'm watching Shai get, February fouls. I think they are fouls, but they're just not what we're used to seeing in the playoffs. That's frustrating. Julius Randle gets benched in the fourth quarter. Naz Reid and Deontay DiVincenzo can't hit a shot. And they're just in a very frustrated place. And
and they're frustrated because they feel like Shai's getting a good whistle on one end and they're not getting the whistle on the other end. Especially in that first half of game 2 when they shot a free throw. And I did think there's times we talked about this that Ant should have gone to the line, but there's been a lot of complaining about all these turnovers and, hey, we're getting fouled. And their coaches are looking at the plays and they're like, they're clean strips. Like, maybe there's a bump before, but like the strips are clean. But what the Timberwolves did last night.
Hold on a second. Chris Finch hasn't complained. I mean, he's made some passing references, but he has not complained about the officiating.
And he's not one who's shy to when he feels
correct.
Like it's appropriate.
So they go to the plane and, talking to some of the players, there's some salty dudes, including Julius Randle.
Yeah. Especially, I would say.
Got benched. Okay. And they all get on the plane, and this is not going to surprise you, but Ant Edwards is acting like there's no problem whatsoever. Don't worry about it. Like, he's pumping everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be fine. Now, I know that that's easy to say, if they lose by 40 in game 3, the same thing could have been true. But Randall told me that he was already trying to psych himself into not letting this be an issue because he's like, I preach, he's been an 11-year veteran now.
Yeah.
And he's like, I preach to the young guys, be a professional, whatever.
Yeah.
You got to be a professional. And so he's trying to talk himself into being okay with getting benched. And Ant is in such a good mood that by the time they're halfway home, he's actually finds himself smiling because Ant was just pumping everybody up. And Naz Reid said the same thing. Naz is like, Ant doesn't let you get in a bad mood. And even Terrence Shannon Jr., who didn't play in game 1 and 2, he was saying how Ant was affecting him. And then I will say that all that is nice. Ant then came out in the first quarter, and played himself to exhaustion. He put forth so much energy in that first quarter that he was literally almost needed oxygen at the end of the quarter.
And outscored the Timberwolves by himself while grabbing all kinds of rebounds, wreaking havoc defensively, distributing. It was an all-around 100% dominant performance. Finch today was talking about Ant's confidence and calm. And basically, the confidence has always been there, born with it. The calm is something that has kind of been a developed thing for him over the course of his NBA career.
Yeah, well, and all that is true. And the Wolves were incredibly impressive from the opening second of the game. And it also was, I think, a sign of the youth of the Thunder. And they had 2 very impressive games back to back. They took a 2-0 lead. And it was a little bit of a different situation because Indiana, when they lost to the Cavs at home, being up 2-0 because they won 2 on the road. But it's kind of the same thing, right? You're coming off this Denver series. It's this absolute slugfest series. They win the first 2 games going away. Shai gets MVP, has a great game. They dominate that game, right? Thinking, man, this is going to be nice and easy. Then you walk into Minneapolis. The Wolves are angry. Spent a couple days stewing over how it went. And they came out with just way more desperation and way more force from an
Force is the
opening
word.
tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he just
That's the word that the Thunder used. And
yeah.
Chet Holmgren, I'm not looking at the direct quote, but he basically said it's not complicated. Wherever they wanted to go, they got there. We didn't stop them. And they just physically punked them in this game. And they punched him in the mouth. And the Thunder, you kind of kept waiting. Are the Thunder going to make any kind of run? Or is this going to get interesting? But Ant played himself to exhaustion. Then what happens? TJ Shannon gets the first real minutes of the series, and he goes for 9 points in a 4-minute flurry. So, and Ant not only played himself to exhaustion, but the crowd was in a frenzy. And then TJ Shannon comes in, this rookie who's, fringe rotation guy. He just takes that thing to another level. And there was like a few minutes span at the beginning of the third quarter that you thought, can the Thunder pull
I think it was 11-2. Rob.
Yeah, can the Thunder pull off another miracle? Like I was there when they came back from 29 down in Memphis. Now Ja got hurt and that started the comeback, whatever. But 26 down at halftime, they came back and won that game. So you're thinking like, dude, is this? And then they got it down to 22, and that was that. They never mounted any kind of real comeback threat. The plug was pulled with more than 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Just complete and utter domination by the Timberwolves. The Thunder tasted their own blood. I haven't looked at. Again, I'm using another diagonal term. He had some good ones today.
That's what he said? I didn't see that.
The Thunder we tasted our own blood is what he said. He said it's not necessarily a bad thing to taste your own blood.
Well, it sounds like Joe Mazzulla. He's back.
Yeah. But, we talked about the historic point differential in the playoff stat. That took a beating. I haven't looked at it since that game, but it ain't what it was.
That's no kidding.
It's not nearly as historic. I can promise you that.
Well, the other thing, so the first two games, I wouldn't say that maybe they would disagree. I wouldn't say that the Wolves played that much zone, but they did play zone because that had worked for them against the Thunder in the regular season, and Denver had some success in the half court. Well,
a lot of success for Denver, but yes.
In game two specifically, the Thunder, it was hard to even compute in that game because the Thunder just really weren't bothered at all.
No, they were. Shea and Jada walked into like clean, easy for them, mid-range look after mid-range look.
So I don't think they were playing great zone, but the point is that they pretty much abandoned that in game three. And the way Finch described it was we went back to our fastball.
And it's not just they went back to playing man; they went back to playing a much more aggressive.
Yes,
they were pushing
skin,
the
defense.
And look, Rudy was not a factor in the first two games defensively. Like one of the plays in the first quarter, like Ant dominated. But how about when Rudy comes out and they double Shea near half court and Rudy gets a strip? Now he didn't.
Shea was quite surprised.
He didn't get to finish the dunk on the other end, but he gets a strip and takes it in for the dunk, and Shea had to foul him. And then he was just like, Rudy wasn't playing that passive drop that you just can't do against Shea and JW. You just can't let those guys walk into 14.
Well, once Shea gets to
footers.
The reason you can play with drop is because you're denying the drive. That's the point, right? Of the drop is you're denying the drive.
Yeah, and he wants to get to those spots and pull up.
That's right. Shea's like, fine, you're going to force me into the mid range. I'll take it.
Yeah, these are layups for me. He's one of the best mid range shooters we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So you've got to play up against him, and Jalen Williams.
Also, Naz Reid, he was 0 of 12 on threes in the comforting games 1 and 2. He hit his first 4 shots, including both 2 threes. Like things just,
Well, one thing I definitely noticed, and I will say this with complete confidence in my analysis, is the Timberwolves are much better when Naz Reid hits every shot than when he hits none.
Let me write that down. I should have led with that.
I've shared that with some of the Wolves staffers, so they all agreed.
Lucky for you, they have your input to fall back.
I'm telling you, I might, ESPN better bid high because I'm in demand.
Well, you're elite. You're an elite guy at the bar post game. Nobody analyzes.
Easy. I've been given a JJ Redick championship shape speech by the old IT department, so you ain't gonna be able to find me at bars post game for a while.
and let me just say, you're sticking to it. I can vouch for that.
Hey, I've played pickup ball twice during this series. Let me tell you, pretty dominant performance by me in the last 2 games. We're going to talk about the first 3 today. Let's go on.
All right. I need more data to be able to say whether this series pivoted or not. Is what is my
I would agree.
analysis.
And look, the Thunder of all people can tell you with a straight face that a blowout doesn't necessarily mean anything for the next game. I mean, they smoked the Nuggets by 40, whatever it was, in game 2 and lost game 3. Like you don't get to package those points and bring them in the next game.
Well, I will say this: Mark Daigneault has said repeatedly, whether they won by 40 or lost by 40, that each game is its own.
Yeah, its own chapter. Blah blah blah.
He has repeated that, so it was easy when he says that. It wasn't just lip service.
But we did learn something in game 3, and that's look, the Timberwolves ain't scared. And they're not going to go out meekly. They're not just going to, oh my gosh, 68 wins and look at all this great defense and Shea's the MVP. They're not just going to roll over. And I can promise you this, as Shea's the MVP, deservedly. And Ant, I don't know where he finished. I don't know where he finished on 7th, whatever it was.
7th or 8th, yeah.
Yeah, 7th, whatever. Ant's not walking out on the court wondering if he can be the best player on the floor. Yeah, I can tell you.
I also will say this about we haven't talked about Julius Randle at all. He was a total 100% pro. He got benched. He wasn't getting it done. He had a great first half of game 1. The next 5 quarters, he goes 5 of 16, was not effective. He was there 4 hours early for game 3. And he had 23, I think. I think he was 9 of 15. He had a professional response. And the thing about the Wolves is they do have a bunch of young guys, but Gobert's been around a long time. Mike Conley's been around a long time. Julius has been around for 11 years. It was a very mature response to not just obviously down 2-0, but things were so much going against them, and it was a very mature response.
Yeah, and look, man.
Yeah, now it's time for the Thunder to do the same thing.
You're right.
Yeah, and Julius Randle's had he's been a big time pro all season. Think about the circumstances for him, and obviously, Katz had a huge game for the Knicks tonight. Has had an All NBA season, but these guys were traded 2 days before camp, out of the blue. I mean, not we had inklings, there was interest and all that, but it's not like they thought they were getting traded and for them, they felt like they were blindsided by this. And for Julius, there was a lot of frustration this season. The fit was something they had to spend most of the season figuring out. There was a lot of clunkiness, and he was getting a lot of heat. He was getting a lot of blame when they didn't come shooting out of the gates. Not necessarily internally, but just in the discussion around the team. And the guy played his best ball down the stretch, as aside from one game, has had a great playoffs. For a dude who's not known as a playoff performer, he has been this season. And so I don't think we should be surprised at the way he responded to his first clunker of this postseason.
A key part of my reporting on Julius Randle was that he switched his pregame music from Drake and Nipsey Hussle to Young Jeezy.
Well, listen, you can't be going.
I can. This is the stuff I've got my finger on the pulse on this.
Well, you do have that OVO ESPN Jack. Oh no, you don't. I've got that, man. Listen, if my contract negotiations don't go well, it'll be on eBay.
Your boy 2 Chainz is going to be very upset, and your other boy Jadakiss is also going to be very upset. Cheating on him with Young Jeezy.
It was James White, Flight White. Remember Flight White?
Oh yeah,
sure do.
He's one of the Wolves' assistants, and he suggested Young Jeezy. I would just say that the reason I gave you the jacket was that not so much that I didn't want to have a horse in that fight. I think it was important to stay neutral.
I think it was more so that you didn't have room in your luggage, but
that is the correct answer.
I said I wanted to stay neutral.
I did a whole. I did the technique of you sit on the suitcases.
Yes.
You're zipping it. Like I was pretty strong. I got it home, and I'll tell you, like I said, you might see it early October on eBay if things don't go well for me.
I was in the lobby of the hotel Bontemps yesterday. What day was it? Friday.
Saturday.
When
Friday.
Today's Sunday, right?
whatever.
So
When
Saturday.
MacMahon arrived, I was in
Oh
Minneapolis.
no, that was 2 days ago.
I was in the. I was happy to be in the lobby. I was happy to see him. We were going out to a nice dinner, and people who were with me reacted in shock and awe at the amount of luggage he had.
Listen, there's 2 check bags and a duffel bag, and then a computer bag. Here's the deal.
Listen, there's a reason the guy takes forever to get his work done. He's got a lot of accessories. He's got to have them all set and ready to go.
It's not accessories. I had to pack for 8 games. So that's 8 suits. Well, damn, you can't repeat kicks. So it's 8 suits, 8 kicks, but then
Sounds like a lot of accessories.
No, it's not accessories. It's kicks and suits. Then you got to have, your sweats for the non-stuff. And then like we're hooping, so I got to have another pair of kicks, to hoop in. And if we're hooping, damn. Now here, the high price is an accessory, but it's a necessity because trust me, when we get done with this, I'm putting that thing on old lower back because I'm old and I'm stiff. Got to pack the icy hot.
Shout out to Anthony Katz, CEO of Hyper Ice.
Yeah,
a listener. I just for the record, Bontemps.
That's just a count. That's just a count of 10 pairs of shoes plus.
11 because I got the championship shape speech, and so I had to pack some running shoes for the elliptical.
Okay, so now we're up to 11 pairs of shoes. 11 pairs of shoes.
So there's a bag, the check bag.
As I said, there's a lot of accessories. We have to have a lot of accessories.
Shoes.
We got a lot of stuff to prepare, a lot of stuff to think about.
He does. Well, I will say this, he does look spectacular. But I will say
handsome man.
I want to point out that Dave McMenamin was also there, and when people expressed shock and awe, McMenamin leapt to McMahon's defense.
Nobody likes an accessory. Just like nobody's slower than MacMahon, except for McMenamin.
He's
the only person who likes an accessory more than MacMahon is McMenamin.
Listen,
McMenamin was like, do not judge a man's. Because what's the difference? He's managing it. It's not your luggage. You don't have to take it.
I've got a
We love Dave, and Dave loves pickup hoops. And when Dave is going to play pickup hoops, there's a lot of accessories that are being.
Oh no,
wearing tights, or wearing sleeves.
He's got it all
the stuff.
He had the Kobe Grinches on today, looking good. All that Q's gear, I mean, it's probably why we finished 2 and 3 instead of on the bright side. But also, I kind of got scorched in game 2. I ain't gonna lie. But no, McMenamin will fiercely protect your honor as long as it serves his agenda.
All right. With that, we got 2 series, gentlemen, and onward and upward to game 4s. And we will speak to you after them. Thank you to Jackson, our producer. Thank you to MacMahon. Thank you to Bontemps. Thank you to McMenamin for having McMahon's back. And he arranged a gorgeous dinner and watch party for us on Sunday night.
I missed that one, but I was there for the 8:30 Uber. Coming off a freaking game to go play pickup. It's pretty impressive.
It was at a French restaurant, and I brought my 7-year-old who's here, and he learned a whole bunch of French.
Ooh, escargot, oui.
And they served him for the table. There was some French delicacies that were brought to the table, and there was a collection taken up to get my son to try caviar.
Oh,
and it got up to $14.
That's a pretty good price.
That was the key. $12 wasn't enough, but 14. That got him to do it, and he did try it, and it did not go down the hatch. But he tried it, which were the terms of the negotiation. And no one negotiates like my son. He's the lead negotiator.
Well, that runs in the family.
Anyway. But thank you to McMenamin. Anyway, thank you to Jackson. Thank you for watching and listening to the Hoop Collective. We'll be talking to you after the game 4s.
Adios, amigos.